This November, California will be voting on Proposition 19. It is an initiative to sell, transport, grow, and use the cannabis plant. It is my belief that it is our freedom to do what we want to our own bodies, so long as it does not cause any harm to anybody else's bodies, or threaten their property, stuff like that. There's a little history that not a lot of people learn about in school because they spend most of the time teaching children that it is not right to use a drug at all, that is harmful to your health and creates laziness, which in some instances it may, in some instances it may not. I'm not going to argue the benefits or downfalls of the drug. I am simply arguing that a system with legalization will work better than a system without legalization, as it had worked for 2,000 to 3,000 years previous to us making it illegal. There's a little history that I believe people should understand about the legalization of cannabis. It was legalized in the early 90s as a result of a businessman, William Hearst, wanting it to be legal because of his greed. He wanted to be able to use his paper mills to distribute his newspapers, and he thought that companies that had used hemp mills to distribute their papers would be able to do it cheaper. In order to make it more expensive for them, he wanted to be illegal and not use it at all, actually. But so that's one of the reasons, and in order to do this, in his newspapers he charged blacks and Mexican people of using this drug in order to create fear. He was creating fear that the minorities would use this drug and rape our women and children, that they would terrorize our country, that they would go around and act like raged maniacs. And you could see this in a lot of the propaganda in the early 30s. Marijuana comes from the name Mexican weed, so there you go. You already see right there, that's some of the origin to that. And just in general, this racism has followed up until even today, that minorities use drugs more than white people, which is not true, especially in the United States. Minorities only account for a fraction of our population, and I have heard estimates of 50 million Americans using the drug on a regular basis. So it's not just the minorities, and it's never been just the minorities. Ben Franklin grew the drug. That's not a reason to legalize it, but that just illustrates that it has a long history in this country. Furthermore, there is a morality I do not understand between the two parties that stand today, and that is conservatives seem to be against this, yet they are always touting how they are trying to increase our freedoms. Obviously completely untrue if they do not support this, because there is our freedoms, which is not to be anything other than interpreted as what we are allowed to do. When you illegalize something, that makes it so you cannot do that. So to an extent, I understand if their religion tells them that they are not to use abortion. I understand that, and if they want to make that decision, that's completely fine, and I can understand why they make this argument. But nowhere in any religion that I know of does it prohibit the use of marijuana. So I do not see any reason as to why they would want to make it illegal and reduce our freedoms. As for the progressives or the liberals, I assume a portion of them support it, but I know there are also a portion that don't support it, and I think they should see that in the 80s, when we started perceiving drugs as a problem, it became more of a problem. Just like alcohol, we perceived alcohol as a problem and it became more of a problem. It has been the same way, and the more you decrease the drug in our system, the more value it's going to gain. If you make it more illegal, if you make the punishments more severe, you're going to increase the risks, and that is going to drive up the value, and then consequently you're going to have more people willing to take that risk. Unfortunately, not higher and middle class people are going to take that risk. It's the lower class people that are going to take that risk. You're going to have minority communities taking that risk. And for a plant, it's not much risk other than getting caught by the police. But you think the police could patrol the millions and millions of residents of this state? You can't do that. The more you decrease it, the more effort you put into it, it's not going to make a difference. It just means more people are going to take the effort to do it. That's all it does. There's nothing you could do about the use of this plant at all. If people want to use it, they're going to use it, and it's terrible. And as we see in Pasadena, they had a study that showed that blacks were 3 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana charges than whites. So why? It's because it's a lot of racism, and this country is driving racism, surrounded by this whole drug legalization. And I also have a problem with parents saying that they're afraid of their kids using it. It's not true that we are backing the use of this drug. We are not saying it's okay. Are you backing the use of cigarettes just because they're legal?